oil-rich creeks lies a people whose history has been shaped by water, trade, and survival. The Egbema. Often caught between the politics of ethnicity and geography, the Egbema story stretches back centuries, linking the Western Ijaw to ancient deltaic migrations long before colonial borders were drawn. Long before the British flag was raised over the Niger Delta, the Egbema people thrived as fishermen, traders, and navigators across the intricate waterways between the Non, Fokado, and Wari rivers. Their settlements, surrounded by mangrove forests and tidal creeks, became strategic centers for trade in palm oil, salt, and fish. The Egbema were part of the wider Ijaw nation, a seafaring people whose linguistic and cultural unity stretched from modern-day Bayelsa to the western Niger Delta. British ethnographer Percy Amaury Talbot, in his monumental 1926 work, The Peoples of Southern Nigeria, classified the Egbema among the Western Ijaw, or Ijaw tribes. Talbot's observations were based on extensive fieldwork across the southern provinces of colonial Nigeria. He wrote that the Ijaw occupied the creeks and waterways stretching from the Non River westward to the Fokado and Wari rivers, describing them as one of the oldest deltaic populations in West Africa. He noted that their culture and traditions were deeply tied to the water, from their spiritual beliefs to their governance systems, where each community was ruled by elders and chiefs who derived legitimacy from ancestral shrines and communal consensus. Talbot's documentation remains one of the earliest ethnographic confirmations that the Egbema were not a fringe community but a recognized part of the Ijaw cultural sphere. He emphasized that the Western Ijaw, including Egbema, shared language, customs, and social structure with the Eastern Ijaw of Kolokuma, Nembe, and Oporoma. As British colonial rule expanded in the early 1900s, detailed administrative and ethnographic intelligence reports were commissioned to define ethnic boundaries and governance structures in the Delta. One such document, the Intelligence Report on the Ijaw Tribe, compiled in the 1930s, identified the Egbema as an autonomous Ijaw clan within the Western Delta province, alongside Baramatu, Ogbe-Ijaw, and Isaba. The report described the Egbema as occupying the swamplands west of the Wari River, with settlements including Polobubu, Ofunama, Opuama, and Dinkoro. It also recognized an Egbema Native Authority under the supervision of the British resident in Wari province. This intelligence report was significant because it established Egbema as a distinct political entity. It drew clear ethnic lines separating Egbema from neighboring Itsekiri and the Hurobo territories. While the Itsekiri dominated the dry coastal towns and the Hurobo occupied inland farmlands, the Egbema held the swampy and riverine belts, an ecological zone that defined their fishing and trading lifestyle. In the 1934 Colonial Annual Report of Nigeria, preserved in the United Kingdom National Archives under record code CO 1710, this classification was confirmed. The report listed Egbema under Ijaw territories of the Western Delta Division administered alongside Isaba, Baramatu, and Ogbe-Ijaw. It also noted the economic importance of Egbema settlements which exported palm produce and fish through the Wari trade routes. The Egbema, according to the report, maintained strong trade ties with European companies and neighboring Ijaw clans, transporting goods by canoe to colonial depots along the coast. district officers posted to the Warri province between 1927 and 1944 continued to reference Egbema as part of the Ijaw administrative division. Their periodic reports, now housed in the National Archives, recorded the Egbema as having their own native court, chieftaincy system, and council of elders. The officers frequently remarked on their independence and resistance to external control, a trait common to the wider Ijaw nation. Beyond colonial records, linguistic evidence also reinforces the Ijaw identity of Egbema. Studies by early linguists such as Kay Williamson in the 1960s classified the Egbema dialect as part of the Western Ijaw subgroup, sharing strong similarities with Apoi and Baramatu speech patterns. This linguistic continuity provides deeper proof that Egbema's roots lie firmly within Ijaw civilization, rather than being an offshoot of neighboring ethnic groups. Oral traditions, later compiled by historian Egbesu Alagoa in A History of the Niger Delta, published in 1972, further support the colonial documentation. Alagoa's research, drawing from elders' testimonies and clan histories, traced the migrations of several Ijaw clans, including Egbema, from central delta areas such as Oporoma and Apoi. According to oral accounts, a group of Ijaw ancestors, led by legendary figures, journeyed westward in search of new fishing grounds. They founded the first Egbema settlements at Polobubo and Ofunama, gradually expanding towards Opwama and Ajakurama. These communities maintained cultural practices such as the Egbesu war deity, traditional council governance, and age-grade institutions, all of which are hallmarks of Ijaw heritage. The Egbema were known for their resilience and military organization. In pre-colonial times, they defended their waterways from slave raiders and rival ethnic incursions. Their war canoes, adorned with intricate carvings and powered by coordinated paddlers, became symbols of Ijaw maritime dominance. Colonial officers, often impressed by their organization, noted that the Egbema people were fiercely protective of their autonomy and suspicious of external interference. With the advent of British rule, the Egbema's strategic location placed them at the center of new economic networks. The Warri River became a vital route for palm oil and later crude oil exports. British trading companies established posts in nearby areas, bringing both wealth and conflict. While the colonial economy expanded, the Egbema struggled to preserve their identity amid growing administrative pressures. Despite the clarity of the colonial and ethnographic record, post-independence politics blurred these historical boundaries. The creation of new states and local governments in Nigeria divided the Egbema kingdom between rivers and delta states. Communities such as Polobubo and Opwama were placed in delta state, while others like Aga and Ogbudugbudu fell within river state. This artificial division split one ethnic nation across two administrative regions, creating lasting tensions over development, representation, and resource ownership. The 1976 and 1991 Nigerian state boundary adjustments deepened this fragmentation, often ignoring pre-colonial and colonial boundaries. Egbema leaders have since made several appeals to federal authorities for recognition as a unified Ijaw kingdom. Their argument is grounded not on sentiment, but on the documented facts of history. Facts recorded by the very colonial officers who defined Nigeria's earliest administrative borders. Today, the Egbema people continue to uphold their Ijaw identity through festivals, music, and language. Annual celebrations such as the Egbesu festival and traditional boat regattas showcase their deep connection to the water and their ancestors. The Egbema traditional councils, both in rivers and delta states, trace their authority to to the pre-colonial chieftaincy systems that were recognized by the British residents of Warri Province. These royal institutions act as custodians of culture, ensuring that the stories of migration, resilience, and unity are passed to younger generations. Modern scholars continue to revisit the Egbema question, examining how colonial definitions have shaped post-colonial identity. Historians note that Egbema's division reflects a broader pattern of boundary distortion across the Niger Delta, where ethnic groups were split for administrative convenience. Yet, when the evidence is re-examined, one conclusion stands out clearly. The Egbema have always been Ijaw by language, by culture, and by history. Colonial ethnographies, linguistic research, and oral history
converge on the same truth. From Talbot's 1926 classification to the 1934 Colonial Annual Report, from district officers' records to Alagoa's historical synthesis, the narrative is consistent and compelling. Egbema is not a border identity. It is an ancient Ijaw heritage carried forward through centuries of change. As Nigeria continues to debate questions of ethnicity and boundaries, the colonial documents remain an undeniable witness. They testify that the Egbema are not a recent political invention, but one of the foundational Ijaw clans of the western Niger Delta. Their history, inscribed in archives in London and echoed in the songs of their elders, tells of a people bound by water, strengthened by struggle, and united by memory. Egbema's story is, therefore, more than local history. It is a chapter in the larger history of the Niger Delta and of Nigeria itself. It reminds us that beneath modern boundaries lie older identities that refuse to fade. And as long as the tides of the Delta continue to rise and fall, the spirit of Egbema, the Western Ijaw nation, will continue to live on.